by taking refuge. Buddham Saranam Gacchami Dhammam Saranam Gacchami Sangham Saranam Gacchami. I go for refuge in the Buddha. I go for refuge in the Dharma. I go for refuge in the Sangha. Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. Dhammam Saranam Gacchami. Sangham Sharanam Gacchami. And we'll begin with our 15 minutes of seated meditation. We'll chant the Gatha on opening the sutras. This Dharma, incomparably profound and minutely subtle, is rarely encountered, even in hundreds of thousands of millions of ages. Now we see it, hear it, hold and maintain it. May we completely realize the true mind of all Buddhas. Okay, we're in for a treat tonight for, once again, we get the Dharma from New Jersey with our brother Dayan Chita.
Good evening, the Dharma from New Jersey. So I'm going to pick up where I left off last time. So last time I talked about Lojong, mind training using slogans that are remembered and applied in order to reduce ego attachment and cultivate bodhicitta, compassion. And specifically, I discussed the frequent use of the Lojong slogan, always meditate upon whatever causes resentment. So some of our later discussion, some of you compared Lojong to Wadu, which was an interesting comparison. And there are definite similarities, but some differences. And I want to talk about the similarities and differences tonight. So they do have some things in common. Both rely on the Smriti Sampranjana, the mindfulness and clear comprehension, a minding and reminding to apply a particular statement to our experience. However, Wadu, at least as I learned it from Johnson and reading Sheng Yan and others, applies the same statement, the critical question to all circumstances with the goal of breaking through conceptual thought, the dualistic mind, experiencing a sudden awakening of some sort. In that experience, many enjoy, however briefly, a feeling of mental clarity and freedom, wisdom, joy, and compassion, the wish that everyone could feel that free and joyful all the time. But it doesn't necessarily last. And what then? Well, Korean Zen master Sobul Sunim considers Wadu practice to be almost an end in itself. According to the introduction to his commentary on the Zen teachings of Wang Bo, a bird in flight leaves no trace. Master Sobul's answer to those wanting to know what to do after their sudden awakening experience was live well. And by that, he apparently meant just stop thinking there is something more you need to do, and all will be perfectly clear in and of itself. Perhaps, if you can do it. And yet even Zen masters still seem to involve themselves in ethical scandals or squabble amongst themselves in ways that shows little compassion. I've heard these things happen. So perhaps there is some gradual cultivation yet to do, especially for those of us who aren't yet Zen masters. So sudden awakening, Wadu, Lojong is more gradual cultivation. And there are numerous types of gradual cultivation, following the precepts, various forms of meditation, mindfulness, loving kindness, shamatha vipassana, focus concentration, open monitoring, all of which are beneficial. But gradual cultivation is learning to cultivate that brief experience of mental clarity, freedom, wisdom, and compassion until it suffuses our entire lives to fully cultivate bodhicitta, the awakened mind, compassion for all beings. So Lojong is one powerful way to do that. And I'm going to give you a little background and context for this. So Lojong has 59 traditional slogans categorized under 7 main points. There are the preliminaries, the basis for Dharma practice, the main practice, which is training in bodhicitta, transformation of bad circumstances into the way of awakening, showing the utilization of practice in one's whole life, and the evaluation, disciplines, and guidelines of mind training. So tonight, I just want to discuss the first slogan, one of the most complex. It's just train in the preliminaries. So those 5 words, properly understood, can change your entire life. They certainly have mine. So the preliminaries are the basis for Dharma practice. The goal of practice is to cultivate bodhicitta. First, absolute bodhicitta, compassion for all beings, and then relative bodhicitta, compassion for specific beings, which is often more difficult, at least for me. The preliminaries help to prepare us for absolute bodhicitta, which provides the foundation for relative bodhicitta, which you work on with other slogans, the other 58. So the preliminaries involve the 4 thoughts, or the 4 reminders, and we're all familiar with the basic concepts, as you'll see. So in her commentary on the preliminaries from her book, Always Maintain a Joyful Mind, Pema Chodron explains these 4 reminders. 1, maintain an awareness of the preciousness of human life. 2, be aware of the reality that life ends, death comes for everyone. 3, recall that whatever you do, whether virtuous or not, has a result. And 4, contemplate that as long as you are too focused on self-importance and too caught up in thinking about how you are good or bad, you will experience suffering. Zen teacher Norman Fisher seems to disagree that awakening experience alone completely awakens us. And he wrote a book on Lojong, a practice he recommends because of what he sees as a relative lack of systematic training in compassion in Zen. So hence the title of his book, Training in Compassion, Zen Teachings on Lojong. In the book, he outlines 3 ways of training in the preliminaries. So first, contemplate everything that's happened in your life, good or bad, take responsibility for it. To train in the preliminaries, he writes, is to stop moaning and feeling sorry for yourself and to recognize that instead, that regardless of what has happened or why, this is your life and you are the only one equipped to deal with it. Second, for a specifically Zen context, training in the preliminaries could involve a steady Zazen practice. And a third way is one practiced in Tibetan Buddhism. He writes of the 4 thoughts that the practice of reflecting on the 4 points might involve, first, reading about them. Second, reading about them again and again. Third, writing them down and thinking about them. Fourth, journaling about them. And 5th, continuing to bring them up in your meditation practice or other time set aside for personal reflection. So deep and systematic reflection on these 4 points constitutes training in the preliminaries. You mind and remind yourself of these 4 points until they transform your worldview and consciousness completely. Gradual cultivation to full awakening. So the first point, human life is precious because it gives us the freedom and capacity for awakening that we wouldn't have if we were beetles or hungry ghosts. In the practice of Lojong, cultivating compassion through training the mind, Tralag Kyabgon writes that the freedoms we possess consist of being born human, having the pleasure to pursue spiritual practice, possessing physical health and intelligence, contact with the teachings and the moral sensibilities to appreciate those teachings and feel compassion for others. You must remind yourself of these freedoms and endowments every time you practice and engrave them deeply in your mind. Second point, everything is impermanent. including our precious human lives. Everything ends. We will die. Many are disturbed by thoughts of their death, but there's no reason for fear or wishful thinking. What should we do with it? We should act now. Third point, the power of karma. We all understand that karma doesn't mean the woo-woo sort of cosmic what goes around comes around that it means in popular American culture, the karma's a bitch way of thinking about it. We know that it's just the law of actions and consequences. Because of countless actions of others and ourselves in the past, we are the way we are now. Because of the power of the karma, we can change our minds and our world by making different and more skillful choices. And every thought and action and reaction and inaction at every moment changes us. Karma can be our friend. Fourth point, the ultimate unsatisfactoriness of samsara, or as Fisher puts it, the inescapability of suffering. This is the first noble truth. Dukkha exists. It's not that life is suffering, but that unless we transform our minds and relate to the universe in a different and more skillful way, we'll find a lot of dissatisfaction in our lives. But we can change that. So my shorthand version, to help me remember these 4 points: choice, impermanence, karma, dukkha. The points are interrelated. Samsara is ultimately unsatisfactory, partly because we are conditioned by karma to attach ourselves to impermanent things as if they were permanent. But because of our precious human birth and our freedom and capacity for awakening, we can recondition ourselves through different karmic choices, realize the impermanence of samsara, indeed even realize with Nagarjuna that nirvana is samsara. And there's an urgency as well. We're human now, but we won't always be, so we need to act. Carpe diem, seize the day, seize the moment. We'll have a reminder of this tonight. Life and death are of supreme importance. Opportunities to awaken are easily lost. Do not squander your time by night or day. So through Lojong, we can learn to transform everything we encounter or experience, every word, every action, every reaction, into the path of awakening. It's a constant, intentional practice engaging everything we do. And training in the preliminaries, minding and reminding ourselves of dukkha, impermanence, karma, our choice, until we make those truths real for ourselves and restructure our entire worldview, is the foundation of all later Lojong practice. So to sum up, Wadu and Lojong are both mind training in a sense, and both rely on mindfulness and clear comprehension, and a constant minding and reminding. But at least in my experience, Wadu is an excellent technique for sudden awakening and Lojong for gradual cultivation. With Wadu, we can get a glimpse of the unconditioned and a brief feeling of wisdom and compassion. With Lojong, we can gradually cultivate that feeling of wisdom and compassion, the bodhicitta, the awakened mind with compassion for all sentient beings. So perhaps, maybe, for some people, Wadu leads to an eternal flame of wisdom and compassion that never goes out. But maybe for others, it leads to a spark of wisdom and compassion. And Lojong is a process of feeding the flame and building it into a roaring fire. So I'll end with a bodhicitta prayer popular in Tibetan Buddhism, often attributed to Nagarjuna. May the precious and sublime awakened mind arise where it has not arisen, and where it has arisen, may it not decay, but grow ever more and more. Wadu helps the awakened mind arise, and Lojong helps it grow more and more. Thank you for listening.
And thank you for your teaching. We'll go back to our next 15-minute period of seated meditation. Before we chant the Heart Sutra tonight, for those who don't know our chants, I'm going to share my screen, and it'll be that one. And this is the One Mind Zen website. And you'll see under practice over here, there's a tab called practice. And this has all of our chants on it. Okay, so if ever you wanted to join in with us and chant something like the Heart Sutra, which we are going to chant right now, this is a place where you could find it. And there's even a download, if I'm not mistaken, chant sheet download. There you go. So there's no excuse. That being said, we will chant the aforementioned Heart Sutra. Maha Prajna Paramita Riraya Sutra Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, when practicing deeply the Prajna Paramita, perceives that all five skandhas are empty and is saved from all suffering and distress. Shariputra, form does not differ from emptiness. Emptiness does not differ from form. That which is form is emptiness. That which is emptiness, form. The same is true of feelings, perception, impulses, consciousness. Shariputra, all dharmas are marked with emptiness. They do not appear or disappear, are not tainted or pure, do not increase or decrease. Therefore in emptiness, no form, no feelings, perceptions, impulses, consciousness, no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no color, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object of mind, no realm of eyes, and so forth, until no realm of mind consciousness, no ignorance, and also no extinction of them, and suffering, old age and death, and also no extinction of them, no suffering, no origination, no stopping, no path, no cognition, also no attainment, with nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva depends on Prajnaparamita, and the mind is no hindrance. Without any hindrance, no fears exist. Far apart from every perverted view, one dwells in nirvana in the three worlds. All Buddhas depend on Prajnaparamita and attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Therefore know that Prajnaparamita is the great transcendent mantra, is the great bright mantra, is the utmost mantra, is the supreme mantra, which is able to relieve all suffering and is true, not false. calls to proclaim the Prajnaparamita mantra. Proclaim the mantra which says Gate Gate Para Gate Parasamgate Bodhisattva Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisattva Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisattva. We'll do our personal dedications of merit. I've got a couple, and then I'll leave some space open for you. All sentient beings are one seamless body and pass quickly from birth to death. We remember those who cared for us and are gone. Those who are ill, those who are at war, those who are hungry and who are in pain. May they heal and have peace. We especially dedicate our merit to Mike Gingy Wood, Reverend G. Huh, the extended Sheridan family, those who suffer from the violence of statism, be it North Korea, Syria, Lebanon, Israel, West Bank, Gaza, and all the other places that I'm forgetting. And I'll open it up for anyone of you.
One for the people in Palestine, and as well as one for all the prisoners, especially my comrade and brother, Hibachi. Thank you.
Anyone else? All beings in the 10 directions, subject to the greed, hatred, and delusions of themselves and others. All Buddhas throughout space and time, all honored ones, bodhisattvas, mahasattvas, wisdom beyond wisdom, Mahaprajna Paramita. And we'll recite our faith and practice vow. I will never retreat and will be firm in my mind in this correct Dharma. I will escape from the samsaric cycle of birth and death and definitely will see my original face. I will be sure to inherit the life of insight of the Buddha and save all sentient beings. Infinite realms of light and dark convey the Buddha mind. Birds and trees and stars and we ourselves come forth in perfect harmony. We practice and recite this for all beings in grateful thanks to our many guides along the way. And we'll recite the 4 great Bodhisattva vows. Sentient beings are numberless. We vow to help them all. Delusions are countless. We vow to see through them all. Opportunities to awaken are infinite. We vow to embrace them all. The Buddha way is endless. We vow to embody it. I'll extinguish the candles. and thank you for joining us. Bryant, your camera went on.
I didn't want to make a big hullabaloo and figured I'd just sneak in with everything off.
So, Wayne,
Yes.
I gotta say, I've always been more of a carpe canem kind of guy.
Sees the dog.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
okay.
Just thought I would let you.
Yeah, I don't even want to go there. Well, you know,
The look of disgust on Minwi's face is entertaining.
They
Yeah.
eat dogs here. You know, I drive through the market and see dog meat hanging, and it's just, yeah, I cannot seize that dog.
Well, if you love dogs, eat them, right? I guess that's the maybe they love them more than I do.
Hey, your camera's off, I think.
You are what you eat.
Yeah, there's actually a very important Lakota Native American story where they eat puppy stew, but like only on like really rare occasions, like the end of your life, because there's a story where a tiny puppy during a storm ended up sacrificing his life and being turned into stew so everybody could make it back to camp. So like that little puppy was like Jesus, sort of like the last oil in the menorah. He was serious business, but yeah, it's done in Lakota culture, but like very rarely. But like, yeah, there's some jokes and inside jokes about that too.
The Bodhisattva puppy.
Yeah.
The puppy sattva, I guess, would be the way to go with that. So I like that thread you had going through there with Huadu as sudden enlightenment and then Lojong as the gradual cultivation. That's a pretty good way of doing it. That's like the enlightenment doesn't happen until the water is boiling, but then in order to keep the water boiling after that point is when you have to keep applying the heat. So very much like what you were saying about applying slogans.
Well, I hate if I bored you with Lojong again. I was trying to do something you guys probably haven't heard a million times, but related to something you have. So I figured that sort of captured the sudden enlightenment, gradual cultivation thing, sort of brought it together.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is how I think about it, and that's how I've applied it. I mean, I talk about it because I think about it all the time.
Uh-huh. Well, that's cool. That's part of your practice, and that's, what the gist of these talks is supposed to be, is reflections on our own practice and what constitutes it, and Zen plus whatever is the idea behind it. Bryant, you have your hand up?
I didn't want to interrupt, but I thought the speaker was excellent. I thought everything you said about Lojong and weaving in not only Huadu, but Nagarjuna and a number of other threads was very well done. I myself have been a long time practitioner of Lojong, among many other things, and I think it's a very useful practice. So I was very happy to hear a talk about it, and I thought you did it very well.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Yeah, no,
You guys don't know each other, right?
No, I don't think don't think we've met.
So Bryant is a longtime practitioner from Chicago, and Dayan is another one of the the mafia
That's exactly what
starts with Andre and goes through me and Johnson and Wayne is part of that whole crew.
Yeah, and I've not pursued a Korean Zen path. Mine was a Japanese Zen path to start out with in the 80s, but I branched into pretty much everything. I've done Theravada practice. I've done various Tibetan forms where I was introduced to Lojong through Pema Chodron, Start Where You Are. I
Yeah,
think,
it's a
I'm
good
not
book.
sure when that book came out, but I think it was quite a while ago. So, and just so you're have your daily dose of amazement and wonder, the reason my camera was off is I was at my local library picking up a book with intention to do so before I heard your talk. And this is the book.
That's a great book.
Literally the one you referenced. So
Yeah,
and
that was-
the reason I did so is
That's funny.
because I realized I couldn't find my own copy nor the CD. So I was gonna listen to it in my car, and lo and behold, you gave this talk. So I don't know if the universe is like a giant Siri, where it knows.
No, that
No,
is quite serendipitous. That's the first book. That's a great book. I mean, that's the first one I read on Lojong when I first learned about it, and yeah, she's great.
She's great, and I've got Fisher's book. That's also excellent, and I love when different traditions talk about and contemplate other traditions and weave it together. I think that's something I've been doing for a long time, and I think there's great value in that. I'm not a fan of staying in your own silo, although there's benefit from that too. I will recommend, if you don't know about it, and you might already know about it, from the Tibetan tradition. Are you familiar with the teacher Ken MacLeod?
I am aware of the teacher Ken MacLeod.
So if you go to his website, it's a pretty extensive website with a lot of Tibetan related teachings, etc. And there's the 7-point mind training part of his website where it's literally splayed out on a map with hyperlinked, each of the 59 are hyperlinked to a separate page, and you can just click around to your heart's content. And each item of the 59 has hyperlinks to related stuff. So for example, the ultimate bodhicitta underneath the related links might have stuff from the commitment section or the reminders, whatever. So it's a fun thing. So it's Unfettered Mind.
Unfettered Mind. Making notes now.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I hadn't seen that website. But yeah, the Fisher's book is really interesting of combining, Zen looking at Lojong.
See you next week. Looking forward to hearing from you next week.
Thank you. Looking forward to it next week too. All right. Bye-bye all.
Bye.
So Fisher's book, you were saying you really enjoyed it.
Yeah, the way he, combined, looking at it from a Zen lens, I thought it was a great amalgamation. And I've also sort of sat with various groups and studied a whole bunch of, especially the Tibetans, which I find a great tradition, from Shantideva to, Jamgon Mipam or somebody.
Yeah.
And I sat with them that was what I was doing before the pandemic sort of shut me down, and I ended up kind of looking for somebody else, and found Andre, who connected me with Johnson.
Which Tibetan group? Which lineage?
Well, it's a little complicated. It's in Princeton, and the main teacher had been a student of Chogyam Trungpa, but
Right.
the current sort of root guru is a guy named Anam Thupten in California.
Yeah, I love him.
No mind, no self, no problem, that guy.
Right.
But the teacher is just the sort of the local teacher is a local woman in Princeton named Beverly, who is just really, really great to work with. But I didn't want to go once the pandemic shut it down, and I didn't want to do. Oddly enough, I didn't want to do Zoom. So I Zoom with Johnson, but it's like it's a different thing. I was looking for a teacher and kind of lucked out, I think, in finding him, because he's been great.
So did Ani die or something?
Yes, yeah. a few years ago.
Mm.
Yeah, and she had been the Chogyam Trungpa's student, as I understand it, in the 70s. Yeah, she died. It must have been a year or two before. I think maybe a year before I met them, so maybe 2017.
Mm.
And I sat with them for maybe, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 months. I can't. I mean, it's been a while.
Were they still sitting at FIP?
Yep. Oh yeah, same. And they still are. They're back now.
Oh yeah.
And I just, I mean, I've been working with Johnson for 2 years, so.
Uh-huh.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm pretty happy with that. So,
What
but
is
I've learned a
the
lot,
name?
and I immersed myself in the Tibetan stuff.
What is the name of the Tibetan place you referenced in Princeton?
Oh well, it's the Princeton Buddhist meditation group.
Got
And
it.
They meet in fellowship and prayer.
Okay.
Or
And-
FIP.
Or FIP. I didn't know it was FIP. That's where Andre used to meet.
Yeah.
And so the Princeton Buddhist Meditation Group, and it's the local teacher is this woman named Beverly, and it's great. It's I mean, they're just so low key and it's so nice, and she is just such a calm, wise presence. I mean, I got a lot out of it, and I started reading just widely, and I mean, Shantideva kind of blew me away when I first read that. The Guide to the Way of the Bodhisattva,
Right.
and up through Mipham. But I sort of like the Tibetans get a little rococo for me sometimes. So I like the Zen. I sort of felt like Norman Fisher writes about in the book, I like the simplicity of Zen, but this compassion training of the Tibetans. It's a great combination.
Not
if you
big on the
love
not big on the visualizations.
I don't see them.
Yeah.
Even when I'm reading, my wife says, reading novels, it's like watching a movie in her head. Me reading novels, it's like looking at words on a page. I don't see
Actually,
them.
helpful hint. So Dakini practice isn't really necessarily about forming a visualization in your mind. There's a translation issue with the Tibetan, and Ken MacLeod actually addresses that in his latest book, The Magic of Vajrayana, where he says it's not so much about forming an image in your mind as opposed to embodying the notion. So, for example, being compassion or being wisdom or whatever is much more important. So, if you felt that you failed because you couldn't, visualize a certain sky goddess, you did not fail.
Oh, well, I've read the books where it's like you see the image and you make it realer and realer in your mind. And I'm just like, I see blank. I see the blackness of the inside of my eyes.
There is that aspect, but again, I'm a huge fan of cutting through the Rococo. And to me, every metaphor, every image, every anything you can point to in Tibetan, and sometimes other traditions have this too, they're usually pointing to something that's right here in this 6-foot frame. Right? It's usually pointing to something in human experience. That's what I'm interested in. And sometimes it's hard to cut through the language to get to what it's referring to. But anyway.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. I'm going to have to look all this up. Now you've given me.
I'm sorry you're not in Chicago. I'd love to hang out with you sometime due to your knowledge and your interest. You seem like a pretty cool dude.
Maybe we can Zoom or something sometime. So.
Zoom a cup of coffee or something. Virtual.
That sounds good.